again as we work our way through the first section of the world's greatest speeches. The second entry in Greece and Rome is Socrates on his condemnation to death. Many people know that Socrates was condemned to death, and I came with some fun facts about that. One little tidbit is that after he delivered the speech which we are about to hear, the supporters that he had in Athens managed to intercept him before he was given to the people who would kill him, essentially. And they offered him escape. He denied escape and drank a poison. Hemlock is the name of the poison. Willingly, when he had escape, he still died of his own choice. So the book goes on to state, Socrates, the great philosopher, was brought to trial in 399 BC on charges that he disbelieved in the accepted gods, and that through his heretical teachings he had corrupted the Athenian youth. The following speech, taken from Plato's Apology, was made by Socrates when the judges found him guilty and sentenced him to death. It just strikes me that people are still on trial for the same things. This was just about 400 BC, so you got 400 years on top of another 2022 years before that. After that, sorry. And all those years precede, so something like 2,600 years, and 2,600 years ago, the powers that be were killing those that disagreed with the narrative. It doesn't so much bother me, but it does interest me, and it stays with me in a way that is almost like it bothers me, but it unsettles me, at least what it is. It unsettles me. So, Socrates, on his condemnation to death, had these words to say. For the sake of no long space of time, O Athenians, you will incur the character and reproach at the hands of those who wish to defame the city of having put that wise man Socrates to death. For those of you who wish to defame, you will assert that I am wise, though I am not. If then you had waited for a short time, this would have happened of its own accord. For observe my age, that it is far advanced in life and near death. But I say this not to you all, but to those only who have condemned me to die, and I say this too to the same persons. Perhaps you think, O Athenians, that I have been convicted through the want of arguments, by which I might have persuaded you, had I thought it right to do and say anything so that I might escape punishment. Far otherwise. I have been convicted through want indeed, yet not of arguments, but of audacity and impudence, and of the inclination to say such things to you as would have been most agreeable for you to hear, had I lamented and bewailed and done and said many other things unworthy of me, as I affirm, but such as you are accustomed to hear from others. But neither then did I think that I ought, for the sake of avoiding danger, to do anything unworthy of a free man, nor do I now repent of having so defended myself. But I should much rather choose to die having so defended myself than to live in that way. For neither in a trial nor in battle is it right that I, or anyone else, should employ every possible means whereby he may avoid death. For in battle it is frequently evident that a man might escape death by laying down on his arms and throwing himself on the mercy of his pursuers. And there are many other devices in every danger by which to avoid death, if a man dares to do and say everything. But this is not difficult, O Athenians, to escape death. It is much more difficult to avoid depravity, for it runs swifter than death. And now I, being slow and aged, am overtaken by the slower of the two. But my accusers, being strong and active, have been overtaken by the swifter, wickedness. And now I depart, condemned by you to death, but they condemned by truth, as guilty of iniquity and injustice, and I abide my sentence, and so do they. These things, perhaps, ought so to be, and I think that they are for the best. In the next place I desire to predict to you who have condemned me what will be your fate. For I am now in that condition in which men most frequently prophesy, namely, when they are about to die. I say then to you, O Athenians, who have condemned me to death, that immediately after my death the punishment will overtake you, far more severe by Zeus than that which you have inflicted on me. For you have done this, thinking you should be freed from the necessity of giving an account of your life. The contrary, however, as I affirm, will happen to you. Your accusers will be more numerous, whom I have now restrained, though you did not perceive it. And they will be more severe, inasmuch that by putting men to death, you will restrain anyone from upbraiding you, because you do not live well. You are much mistaken. For this method of escape is neither possible nor honorable, but that other is most honorable and most easy, not to put a check on others, but for a man to take heed of himself, how he may be most perfect. Having predicted thus much to those of you who have condemned me, I take my leave of you. Excuse me. But with you who have voted for my acquittal, I would gladly hold converse on what now has taken place, while the magistrates are busy, and I am not yet carried to the place where I must die. Stay with me then so long, Athenians, for nothing hinders our conversing with each other, whilst we are permitted to do so. For I wish to make known to you, as being my friends, the meaning of that which has now just befallen me. To me, then, O my judges, and in calling you judges I call you rightly, a strange thing has happened. For the wonted prophetic voice of my guardian deity on every former occasion, even in the most trifling affairs, opposed me if I was about to do anything wrong. But now that has befallen me, which you yourselves behold, and which anyone would think, and which is supposed to be the extremity of evil, yet neither when I departed from home in the morning did the warning of God oppose me, nor when I came up here to the place of the trial, nor in my address when I was about to say anything. Yet on other occasions it has frequently restrained me in the midst of speaking, but now it has never throughout this proceeding opposed me, either in what I did or said. What then do I suppose to be the cause of this? I will tell you. What has befallen me appears to be a blessing, and it is impossible that we think rightly who suppose that death is an evil. A great proof of this to me is the fact that it is impossible but that the accustomed signal should have opposed me, unless I had about to meet with some good. Unless I had been about to meet with some good. Just so we get that full sentence, I'll go back. A great proof of this, proof that death is not bad, is the fact that it is impossible, but that the accustomed signal should have opposed me, unless I had been about to meet with some good. Moreover, We may hence conclude that there is great hope that death is a blessing. For to die is one of two things. For either the dead may be annihilated and have no sensation of anything whatsoever, or, as it is said, there is a certain change, and the passage of the soul from one place to another. And if it is a privation of all sensation, as it were a sleep in which the sleeper has no dream, death would be a wonderful gain. For I think that anyone, having selected a night in which he slept so soundly as not to have had a dream, and having compared this night with all the other nights and days of his life, should be required on consideration to say how many days and nights he had passed better and more pleasantly than this night throughout his life. I think that not only a private person, but even a king himself would find them easy to number in comparison with other days and nights. If therefore death is a thing of this kind, I say it is a gain, for thus all futurity appears to be nothing more than one night. I'm amazed at the ability of people to speak in such long sentences without it becoming sort of annoying to listen to. Like he said, for I think that anyone having selected a night in which he slept so sadly as to have not had a dream, and having compared this night with all the other nights and days of his life, should be required on consideration to say how many days and nights he had passed better and more pleasantly than this night throughout his life. I think that not only a private person, but even a king himself would find them easy to number in comparison with other days and nights. He could have simply said, we all know that dreamless sleep is the finest rest, but instead he went at length to frame it in an argumentative way, not like, fuck you, I'm right, you're wrong, just like, here is my argument, and here is the underlying logic behind my conclusion. So, anyway, Socrates says, if death is like a dreamless sleep, I will wait it eagerly. And he goes on to say, what if death is this other thing? But if, on the other hand, death is a removal from hence to another place, and what is said to be true, that all the dead are there, what greater blessing can there be than this, my judges? For if, on arriving at Hades, released from those who pretend to be judges, one shall find those who are true judges, and who are said to judge there, Minos, Rhadamanthus, Aeacus, Triptolemus, that's just my best guesses there, and such others of the demigods as were just during their own life, would this be a sad removal? At what price would you not estimate a conference with Orpheus, or Musaeus, Hesiod, and Homer? I indeed should be willing to die often if this be true. For me, the sojourn there would be admirable, where I should meet with Palamedes and Ajax, son of Telamon, and any other of the ancients who has died by an unjust sentence. The comparing of my sufferings with theirs would, I think, be no unpleasing occupation, but the greatest pleasure would be to spend my time in questioning and examining the people there, as I have done those here, and discovering who among them is wise, and who fancies himself to be, but is not. At what price, my judges, would not anyone estimate the opportunity of questioning him who led that mighty army against Troy, or Ulysses, or Sisyphus, or 10,000 others, whom one might mention, both men and women, with whom to converse and associate, and to question them would be an inconceivable happiness. Surely, for that the judges there do not condemn to death. for in other respects those who live there are more happy than those who are here, and are henceforth immortal, if at least what is said be true. I think it's interesting that the translation used Ulysses instead of Odysseus. It makes me think maybe I didn't learn the right thing in school, because in school they said that Odysseus was Greek and Ulysses was Roman. So maybe I didn't learn something, or maybe they're interchangeable, or maybe they didn't really think it through. I don't know. They being the people who translated this. You, therefore, O my judges, ought to entertain good hopes with respect to death, and to meditate on this one truth, that to a good man nothing is evil, neither while living nor when dead, nor are his concerns neglected by the gods. And what has befallen me is not the effect of chance, but this is clear to me, that now to die and be freed from my cares is better for me. On this account, the warning in no way turned me aside, and I bear no resentment towards those who condemned me, or against my accusers, although they did not condemn me and accuse me with this intention, but thinking to injure me. In this they deserve to be blamed. Thus much, however, I beg of them. Punish my sons when they grow up, O judges, paining them as I have pained you, if they appear to you to care for riches or anything else before virtue. And if they think themselves to be something when they are nothing, reproach them as I have done you, for not attending to what they ought, and for conceiving themselves to be something when they are worth nothing. If you do this, both I and my sons shall have met with some just treatment at your hands. But now it is time to depart, for me to die, and for you to live. But which of us is going to a better state is unknown to everyone but the gods. So this one was a little shorter than the Pericles one. Probably because he was addressing fewer people. And also probably because Pericles and Socrates are not the same person, so they have differences in the way that they speak. They certainly do. I find Pericles' speech was a bit more, it was grandiose. It made me think about values, societal values. It made me think about my police in a greater picture, made up of a giant mass of people. And what is it? What is it that I ought to owe to my society as a whole? What is duty? And what is my duty to those who have performed theirs? This Socrates' speech doesn't so much, like the Pericles speech was more like, think of these things. The Socrates speech seemed to be more of a declaration of how to think about something like death. It affected my mind deeply, but not in the same way. When Socrates went at length about the whole, dreamless sleep, there was a certain structure to the way that he spoke that indicated to me a person who thinks about things in a way that I would like to be able to. I admired the logic. This was, not any less emotional. speaking just before he is to die, and he does speak with emotion, but there is above that, or maybe under it, composure that it rests upon, and the composure is the greater part of this speech. It is incredibly well composed. There's a calm. I think that's the main merit of the speech, really, is that this is a man who confronts a death which he does not deserve, and does so with such calm. But back to comparing the two, Pericles, in the Pericles speech, you would expect flat, emotionless somberness, and yet you did not get that. There was a declaration of facts, but they were ordered in a way that very much inspired. I did dig into a couple of things that he said, but on the whole, I was moved emotionally on the subject of my place in society, and this Socrates speech moves me intellectually on my place spiritually in the world. It makes me think that one of the better ways to examine the spiritual side of things is to not abandon intellect. It's a useful tool that doesn't always have to be applied practically. Having said that, there is also a good degree of imagination. He talks about meeting mythical figures. I've talked at length here, maybe a little too long. Yeah, it's a bit bold to talk too much. Following Socrates, makes me, I think I'm just trying to compete with him. That's really the difference I want to highlight. I would not try to compete with Pericles because of the way he talks. It's so grand. In that last speech, obviously nobody knows the man. I would not attempt to compete with it. I would comment on it and talk about what he talked about, but I would always just point back to the source and say, you gotta go read it. Socrates is inspiring on a different level, on a relatable level, where he kind of looks at you with a little fire in his eye. At least he seems to in this, and so it inspires you to engage with his thoughts, not simply